Hi Lisa, Claire, everyone. Hello, we're slowly gathering. And yeah, Wesley, are you there?
How we doing?
Okay, fine. We're doing great. This
Champion.
time it worked much better with starting the live interviews than last time. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Uh, so we think we're good in time, and I would like to introduce the interview series and then our guest. My name is Nastasia. I am head of the St. Petersburg Art Residency, and a month ago we've launched a virtual program to make the residency experience accessible for artists around the world who cannot travel anywhere right now. And there are a lot of people involved, but we wanted to use this opportunity and have live interviews to kind of get to know each other in person. And well, Wesley and I, we've known each other for a while now because you were planning to come to residency this summer, which is now probably being postponed, but we're hoping for the best. And
Yeah.
I see there are also some other artists from the virtual residency here. And hi, Boris and Cynthia. I thought it would be also cool if people who join could just text in the comments where you are tuning in from. It's kind of interesting to get an idea of the geography. So, yes, thanks for
Mm,
joining. Wesley, I would like to give you the word. And John Fourie, is it the correct pronunciation of your name? Yes, cool.
champion.
Uh, it is tuning in from New Zealand right now, right?
Indeed
And
so.
Wesley is a multidisciplinary artist. If you've been to our virtual studio, you could see that there are some posts with textile works. That was what you've been working on recently. But there's a
Mm,
lot beyond that. There is poetry. There are
yeah.
musical works. There is curating and festival management. So it's all kind of together in one person. And I guess for everyone, it would be great to learn a little bit about your background and about where you are now professionally.
Sure. Well, hello. My name is Wesley, and I'm an artist in New Zealand. Um, for the last 5 years, I've been practicing within textile works predominantly, but yeah, that's my main focus. But I do pretty much a bit of everything. Um, Last year, my friend Matilda and we had met in Nepal, and we had created a festival for 2 days at the Kathmandu Art Council. Um, the Nepal Art Council in Kathmandu. Um, and today we launched the digital edition of this project. Um, so that's probably, in terms of my professional practice, the main thing that I would sort of like to introduce with.
What were you doing in Nepal?
Uh, I had done a 6-month pilgrimage last year of the Indian subcontinent. For a part of it, I had done 3 artist residencies during this time, and Nepal was the last residency that I was in. And I had, at that residency project, I had met with Mathilde, the woman that I've collaborated with on this project, Abracadabra. Um, and yeah, I love that part of the world, so it was a really pleasant experience. Yeah.
You've posted some really amazing landscapes up in our virtual studio, and when we had our first online meeting several months ago, or maybe even half a year ago, you just came back from the forest. So, could you tell us a little bit about that and those amazing views that I think everyone felt absolutely jealous about?
Oh. So my job for 6 months of the year is working in Fiordland National Park on a hiking track called the Milf Road. Um, and for 5 weeks at a time, we like walk, or sorry, we manage people who are like walking on track, like on this hike. Um, and yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's it's without question the most beautiful place that I've ever sort of been to. Yeah, it's a very pleasant place to be. It's my happy place when I go to in my mind. Uh, and the post that you're making reference to, the landscapes that I've been working on, uh, the first one was as you leave Milford, like along the road. The last time I had driven it, there was like a big traffic jam. So I got out and started drawing on this little
Oh,
piece of cloth.
wow. This is, yeah. Did
Uh,
you take
so
off
this
your
was
t-shirt and cut it off to use this material, or?
no. When I go on track, I'm aware that I'll be there for like 5 weeks at a time. So I tend to bring like as much art materials as possible. Um, and I had come back on track like 2 weeks prior to the lockdown commencing within New Zealand. So, but yeah, this was one of the pieces that I had brought with me on track, thinking I was going to go in for 5 weeks. So it was really
Mm.
handy in terms of moving into this lockdown to have quite so much art materials with me in Rediment.
Can you maybe show us the piece a little bit
Yeah,
closer? I mean,
sure.
we some of us might have seen it online. Wow, this is amazing. So it is textile,
Yeah,
stitching.
it's
What is
embroidery.
embroidery, right?
It's embroidery. Yeah, it's all recycled threads. Like from in New Zealand, we have a lot of op shops, and they're fabulous, institutions. So like rather than have that stuff become wasted, I trawl op shops. So this is yeah, and on a cotton rag.
And
Yeah.
how did you start working on this piece? Because you also wrote that you didn't have any, how is it called, loop for stretching the
Oh,
textile, so it was freestyle, or?
yeah. Well, like first it was during that traffic jam, like heading into the track for the last time. I had drawn on this piece of cloth because I had needed to. Well, I didn't need to. I just didn't want to. I as something to do, and had drawn onto it to embroider, and it became really interesting. Like 2 weeks later, when we had obviously we were evacuated off the track, um, and this became sort of like the last view, I guess, of that space. So completing it has been really interesting
Hmm.
throughout this period because it's sort of part of it was walking into one thing, and then part of it now has been, the exact opposite, leaving that experience. So yeah, it's been quite a lot of fun. It was a nice
Uh,
project, to complete.
yeah, it is also in a way very symbolic.
Mm.
But how did the last weeks look like in New Zealand? Can you give us an overview? Because everyone has been experiencing this crisis differently in their countries,
Yeah,
and in Russia, we're still going up the hill, kind of, or down. It depends on how you interpret it. How
sure.
are things in New Zealand? What is the status right now, and what are the closest predictions?
Uh, I first must say, like, I am so blessed in that, I live in New Zealand to begin with because it's my favorite place in the world. So to be here right now during this experience has been really lucky. I'm pleased that I'm here where I am. We're yet to approach 1,500 cases. I think the last time it was 1490, like 1,490. And it was 20 or 21 deaths. Um,
Mm,
and the past 6 weeks now have been in like level 4 and now level 3 lockdown. So,
mm.
but I must say I've really enjoyed this time, and that it's given me a lot of space within my art practice to do things that had you said to me 6 weeks ago, hey, you're going to do this, 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 and I would have been like, it's not possible. So it really has been a blessing in some ways also.
Did you feel that it gave you more time, more things to think about, or how did it influence your work in general?
It's definitely given me more time in that I was unemployed during the quarantine period. But I mean, the pieces that I've been working on recently are embroideries, so they do take a lot of time. Um, so that's great. The difference in that probably would be time is the biggest factor, in that I've really had a lot of space. But actually, if I compare my life at the moment, you know, in the outside world, living through this crisis, to Milford, my life in the forest, I'm actually significantly less isolated at the moment in that I can make this conversation with you like over a
Mm.
Wi-Fi connection, whereas in the forest that's not a possibility. So
How are you coping with this world isolation when you're in the forest? Is there a need to cope, or is that the place where you actually feel in place, so to say?
I love being in the forest. I would absolutely do my job for free, and then it gives me so much space to explore like a really beautiful part of the world. Um, and I mean, like when I'm working there, it's me and like there's 8 of us there at a time, working. So we do have guests coming through every day, but it's a beautiful experience in that you have so much time for yourself, um, and you really get to reflect and sort of yeah, it's a beautiful experience, and it's set me up amazingly for like moving through this lockdown period because I have coping mechanisms uh, of being in isolation before to now draw on, which is great.
And it's good that we have this wonder of the internet and can still stay in touch, of course.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I mean, it's definitely not how I had expected that we would be, exhibiting something, but I'm very happy with our collaboration now. I think it's
uh,
the project that you've launched is absolutely fantastic. In terms of giving people, yeah, it's a real blessing.
it is kind of growing. I feel like it's slowly getting out of control, in a good way though. So but just before we started the live stream, you briefly told me about this online event you've been working on, and I have already mentioned a festival, and you've talked about we also wanted to have it in St. Petersburg. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Did it already happen? Is it happening right now? Will it happen in the future? And what it is?
Yes. So our second festival launched on the Sausage website about like an hour and a half ago. So if you go onto like sosageltd.com, you'll be able to then visit our exhibition and see some really amazing work. I'm so proud of the artists that we have involved. They're really really cool people. So I'm very happy about that. And yes, we absolutely had planned to do it in St. Petersburg, and I look forward to the day where we're able to do this because I still have my plans for Russia in a changed context perhaps, but we still will make it happen.
And was it the original plan to have a festival online, or did you have to change your programming to this new format? How did it work in general?
Um, so it's run through Squarespace, which is without question, like I rant and rave about it to absolutely anybody who will listen. It's the website provider that I have my website off, and it took me like half an hour to make my initial website for like my artist practice. Um, so yeah, the I had said to Mathilde through the email that we had originally sent, which was titled Russia question mark question mark question mark for our initial plans with you guys in St. Petersburg. Um, and I said to her, how do you feel about doing it online, as a concept? And that was like 3 weeks ago. So
Mm.
in the past 3 weeks, we've been pretty busy collecting a really fantastic selection of artists. And I really must give a shout out to Sausage. It's a self-funded practice. They're absolutely amazing in terms of an art space. The caliber that they show is incredible, and it's New Zealand and international works. They've been so awesome. So I'm very thankful that we've been able to, have that connection. And it's
I
quite fun
kind
for
of,
me.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, you speak.
No, 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 please.
I just thought that for me personally, it's getting a little bit hard to navigate through all the online events and everything
Mm,
that's happening. So it's really great that you told about this platform and commented on the festival because also, I think the offers that we now have as an audience and also as
mm,
professionals is just so much and. I don't know if it's going to stay this way after the shutdown. If institutions and individuals will be still producing so much content online, or we're going back. Yes, I just want to say that it's good to have some orientation points in this sea of online events.
yeah, and I mean there is so much information. It's the internet, so it is helpful to have some sort of curation in place because there's so much information to sort of sift through. Um,
Yeah. I have a question here from Ileana Velozzo, who was our artist in residence last year and who is also participating in the virtual studio. And now we might get back to talking about nature. Ileana asks, what do you think nature is telling you at this moment? So I suppose globally. Um, I've also recently had a talk about, all those animals coming
mm,
back to cities
Show the
and
sense of
outskirts
like
of town.
resurface
And
and
yeah, so something is
mm,
happening. As someone
yeah.
who is so deeply connected to nature, uh, what is it trying to tell us right now? What's going on?
What I can only speak in my sort of reaction that I've experienced, within this process. But I'm thankful in that my relationship with nature was already quite heavily entrenched. But now, like every time I step outside, it's a sacred experience. And yes, we have a lot of digital, there's a lot of stuff happening, but nothing is quite the same as being able to like step into a forest and just chill the fuck out, uh, and really become one with yourself, but also become one with everything, and one manifestation of that being a forest. And I think moving out of this experience, people are going to have a real sense of, it will definitely change the way that people relate to nature, and that when it's in front of you on a screen versus when it's, surrounding you and it's raining or, even now the sensation of rain, I'm sure to some people, one of the four elements is a completely changed experience, to be standing outside in the rain.
It
It's
is.
pretty, yeah.
I also felt like last week we went hiking. Although this is now actually not allowed in Russia, but you just in St. Petersburg at least, you just sometimes have to get out of those walls,
So,
even if
oh,
these are walls you like, and
mm,
still you want to get outside. And I also experienced that feeling that. Uh, you get away from this whole hectic news feed and from all the information,
mm,
and it feels
mm,
like for a period of time it does feel like everything's fine, and you feel relaxed, and the mind gets back to a normal state, so to say.
yeah.
So
I would say for me,
yeah, no, sorry.
none. Um, for me, within this experience, the key within navigating all that information really has been just like look at it, but don't stare.
Mm,
Like absorb information as it's relevant to you, but don't, because there's so many reasons to be cheerful. Like, it might not really seem like it in the present moment, but there's so much to be grateful for. Um, and I think that's important to remember in times like this.
Do you think that you will reflect on these issues in your future works, or how are you going to, and are you going to treat this episode in our life in your artwork?
Um, I think it's safe to assume yes, even if it doesn't sort of visually manifest. It's definitely changed the way in which I relate to the practice. Particularly when making work that's inspired by nature, to now have that. I mean, I shouldn't say it's removed completely, because you can still step outside. I'm very lucky in that throughout the lockdown we were able to go for walks, and right down the hill from me, it's a fabulous little forest, which has been a real blessing. But I would say yes, it will completely change the way that I make art, but it's also changed the way that I relate to so many other things. So
Yeah. And what are the closest and the latest developments in New Zealand? Is there an end that you can see coming? Are the restrictions being taken down? And what is
yep.
that you're going to do after this whole thing is over?
Well, I suppose that sentence is subjective as to like how you would define the event being over, um, because I think it'll probably just change. We won't so much have a like sense of conclusion for a very long while. Um, in New Zealand at the moment, in a few days, we're currently in level 3. There'll be a review to see if we're moving down to level 2, which allows for more public access. Galleries and museums will be able to reopen in a reduced capacity, which would be absolutely amazing. As I was supposed to be exhibiting now at the moment, the body of work that I had made last year in India, Nepal, and then carried through to the start of this year, up in Auckland at the moment at a gallery called The Great Place, which obviously isn't happening at the moment, but it will be ideally at the start of July. So in terms of our development, that's what I'm hoping for, but we won't find out for a few days. But we've been really blessed in New Zealand in that Jacinda has taken it seriously. I mean, I already was in love with her, but yeah, this has been handled really well. If I compare it to how it's been handled in other parts of the world, we're very blessed. Um, I definitely have a lot of empathy for pretty much every other person on this planet right now.
Yes, that's true. Um, what will you be working on right now in the next, I don't know, days, weeks, months? Can you give us maybe some ideas of what your creative process is looking like right now?
Yeah. So next Sunday, I'm hosting a workshop with Dunedin Pride, which is a queer group here in Dunedin, um, on arm knitting, which will be done through, like, in conjunction with Dunedin Pride on my YouTube Live, but through the Abracadabra site also. Um, so that's next Sunday. My current projects, the one I showed you before this, was completed maybe like 2.5 weeks ago. It had been finished, and now I'm working on a portrait of Oraki. It's a shame you can't really see it in the lighting here, but there's a lot of different colors within this brown section, and that's also
Mm-hmm.
a textile embroidery work. Yeah.
Okay.
So this has
Wow.
been my project
Mm.
since the start of lockdown, and I'm hoping to have it finished by the end of July. So we're about 2/3 of the way there, and I mean, I spend probably like 8 hours a day in somewhere working on it. So we're
Yeah.
very committed.
It looks very time consuming. And how long does it, I'm sorry if that's a primitive question, but how long does it take to complete such a work? Are we talking weeks, months, years?
Uh, Definitely not years for this size. Like for me, this has been pretty much since the start of lockdown, and I'd say like yeah, about 8 hours a day in some way, that sort of sporadically throughout the day. Um, so yeah, I guess a month, 40. I apologize, I'm terrible at math. It would be like 160 hours for this so far.
Yeah.
Um, ish. But I try not to think about it, in terms of the amount of time that it takes, because otherwise it's just painful.
Why are you attracted to working with such an interesting but also very difficult and time-consuming medium like textile and embroideries?
Yep. So I sort of have to answer that in two parts. Because for me, one thing I'm really big about, within my artist practice, is being able to um, I like the idea that somebody can look at something that I've made and sort of immediately identify how it's been made. I don't feel like art should be as complicated as it can be within the art world. Um, I really like to make stuff using like simple materials and simple techniques, because when they're presented, over a while, I've tried to make an effort with hosting workshops on the techniques in which I'm practicing within, making art. Uh, I'll show you quickly. This is the other
Oh yes,
project that
please
we've been
do.
working on. So I'm currently sitting at the base of Mount Cargill,
Oh
here in
my.
Dunedin, and
Yes.
this is about a third of the height of Mount Cargill. This is 210 meters. Um, so, but this finger knitting technique, it's really simple. Usually when people, I sort of explain to people what the work that I make is, they sort of say, oh, I know what that is. I did it when I was a child, because a lot of people have this experience of, or with the little doily piece,
Oh, so
or not
you're
doily,
only
sorry,
using your fingers. There's no other
yeah,
equipment. Oh,
yeah,
okay, okay.
yeah. But it's super easy to teach it, and it's a really easy way of translating information, visually, to be able to
Mm,
say, like for example, the last project that when we had spoken last on the phone, it was in Japan, and I was presenting the last completed project of this,
yes, right.
Oraki, and that was 7,000. Oh, sorry, 3,724 meters um, of finger knitting,
Mm,
um, and it's something that throughout the process of making it, it was really easy to teach people within the artist residencies and the workshops that were being hosted, or meeting people throughout that period, and being able to sort of say to somebody, or have somebody ask, oh, what are you doing? And say, yeah, I'm making this. This is how I'm making it. It becomes much easier to communicate and collaborate within art, and that's something that I think is really important, especially now in the context that we're living in. We're talking through a screen. We still really need to have that sense of connection. So
mm.
to me, that seems like quite a pertinent thing to sort of translate within my art practice.
It feels. I also, when I see such works, when you feel that there is this human touch, there you can feel,
Mm.
you can kind of connect to the work on a tactile level. I don't mean
Mm.
by actually touching an installation, but really
No, but
reading
I
it with
I
your
really do
eyes and
encourage
touching
this.
it. Oh, you do?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think it's really for me anyway. The stuff, I'm not very precious about it, but like for example, that exhibition that we were just speaking about in Japan, on the last day, the guy who like sort of ran the space, he had like his children had come and seen it, and they dove into this huge mountain of knitting, and we're sort of rolling around. It was
This is absolutely something children would do.
yeah, but honestly, it was in terms of like my art practice or my artistic career. This moment of watching children like dive in and like hug and play with my work will I'll remember it forever. Because it was really special. Um,
Yes, it is. Yeah, so the work has its own life, its own way to connect and get connected to. That's great. Thank you for sharing all these stories. And if any of our listeners have some final questions you would like to ask or something you would like to share with Wes, this will now be the moment. Otherwise, just thank you for finding time to join the interview series, and we will be sharing this interview on our webpage, and there are also more sessions to come during the next weeks. And yeah, is there anything you would like to tell our viewers?
First of all, I would just like to say thank you to you, because it's such an amazing platform that you've launched here. I think that's really wonderful. And then to the viewers that are currently watching, just please try to stay positive, and make art if you can. It does help. It really, helps put you in a better headspace. If you have access to going outside, go for walks. It makes a big difference, to be able to step outside and take a breath and sort of, calm down a little bit, step away from your phone or, whatever, the internet. But yeah, find reasons to be cheerful, please.
It is, yes, it is absolutely something we should do. I can see there's still a couple of questions. So
Yeah,
there's a
I
question.
just saw one before.
Oh, you saw one. Okay, yeah.
Oh, it's just run up again. Cool. For me, my two favorite artists, I felt very lucky because like an hour and a half ago, I was actually able to watch one of them do um, this Instagram live. He had made a live thing, obviously not a conversation, but just him performing, and I'd never seen that before, so that was excellent. So I really like Martin Creed, and then B, Tracy Emin. I'm a huge fan of these two in terms of their art practice. Yeah, big fan of those two. And then within New Zealand, I have to say I'm a massive fan of Ashley Topaki, and I feel so blessed that she's in the current exhibition that we've organized, Abracadabra.
About the materials that you're using and whether you were looking for eco-friendly materials to work with, or maybe you are already working with recycled material. Is that what you've mentioned before?
Yeah, exactly. So most of my materials are sourced from op shops, which are like secondhand shops here in New Zealand. Um, so the fabrics that I work with, the knitting, like the yarn that I use, it's all secondhand, recycled. In Nepal, I'd say probably about half of the wool that's involved in the Odaki project was recycled silk that was bought in Kathmandu. So that's definitely one of my primary focuses, and also working with natural materials where it's possible to.
Thank you. About New Zealand, Nazar, could you maybe
Right.
specify a little bit what exactly you're interested in considering New Zealand? The weather, your favorite food, or what was it? The current, we've talked a little bit about the current situation already. Okay.
Oh,
Okay, so Nazat, do you want to comment? Oh, don't hear you. Any specific about New Zealand? New Zealand. Okay.
if I can say anything about New Zealand, it's that when you're able to travel here again, the travel bans lift. Please come and country. because it's really cool.
Maybe come to the hike.
Yeah, definitely come to Milford. Come check out Fiordland. It's a funky place. Oh, I meant maybe art scene of New Zealand. Okay. Yeah, we have a fantastic range of people from all across the world here in New Zealand. We have a really big immigrant population, which is amazing because we have a fantastic mix of so many different people and so many different ways of creating. So you get a lot of different, um, artistic practices within that. Um, in terms of connections with Japan, we do have, you know, the Oceania narrative has always been very closely tied to Asia. Um, so yeah, but New Zealand's if you'd like to see some more of sort of New Zealand's art, I'd really recommend checking out the Oceania section on Abracadabra, the festival which is available. If it's possible, maybe perhaps when the stream ends, if I'll just comment like so you can get the link to check it out. But it's pretty cool.